Okay, Truth-Telling, Lecture 5. In this lecture, we'll focus on two articles which discuss truth-telling. More specifically, we'll be examining the extent of a doctor's responsibility to tell the truth to her patients. In our first article, by Thomas Tomasma, we'll have the opportunity to look at many specific cases where various dimensions of the to tell or not to tell question arises. Oops. Okay. Tomasma begins his article by giving several reasons why truth-telling is important. He states that truth-telling is both a right, a utility, and a kindness. First, Tomasma proclaims that truth-telling is a right, as telling the truth to a person is a key component of treating others with the respect that is due them. You may have noticed that even though he's citing the Kantian tradition here, he actually defends truth-telling on utilitarian grounds, when he states that society couldn't function if dishonesty ruled. Widespread dishonesty destroys social relationships, destroys the efficacy of contracts, and otherwise breaks down civil society. Tomasma then places truth-telling in the utility category by citing another way in which truth-telling brings about good consequences. He focuses on the fact that as social creatures, we rely on others to provide us with information so that we may plan our lives. This is especially significant in healthcare contexts, wherein the patient needs accurate information in order to plan both her care and overall life in light of whatever ailment is being experienced. Truth-telling is also kindness, as it builds the trust necessary for people to participate in life-sustaining and indeed life-saving relationships. Notice that this idea could also be cashed out in utilitarian terms. Hence, Tomasma more or less thinks that truth-telling usually brings about good consequences. Truth-telling is therefore a prima facie duty. In mid-70s, doctors' attitudes towards their patients moved away from a paternalistic model on which the truth was often withheld from patients to a model which emphasized the patient's role in medical decision-making. In other words, there was a shift from a paternal model of medicine to a patient autonomy model. One reason for the shift was a growing patients' rights movement which demanded this shift. As important as this movement was for bringing about change, doctors had another, perhaps more significant reason for informing their patients. Medicine, especially treatment of various types of cancers, became more effective. Hence, instead of informing patients that they were under a death sentence, doctors often had real hope to offer patients, given the rise of more effective treatment options. This makes perfect sense, as not only it's more rewarding to share good news, having effective treatments at their disposal was also better for the doctor's sense of self-worth. A doctor prides his or herself on being a healer, and a healer who can't heal may experience feelings of futility, which make it more difficult to reveal to a patient the dire straits they may be in. Question 1C concerns Tomasma's insight that the doctor has more flexibility regarding when to tell the truth to her patients when she has an ongoing relationship with them. Shorter doctor-patient relationships are often in the context of an emergency. In Tomasma's words, such interactions are interventionist. The only purpose of such an interaction is to get information which leads to immediate treatment, and there is simply no time to take a step back and examine all of the repercussions associated with withholding the truth. In contrast, in long-term relationships, the doctor can get a better sense of the patient's values and desires, and also a better sense of what the patient can handle. Under such circumstances, there is more opportunity for the doctor to exercise tact when deciding what information to reveal and when. Tomasma emphasizes the need to fully disclose eventually, but an enduring doctor patient relationship allows for more judicious decision making on the doctor's part. Tomasma's article transitions to a discussion of cases in which the question of truth telling arises. The first case is fictional and stems from a movie entitled Dad, starring Jack Lemmon. Jack's character could not tolerate the news that he had cancer. Indeed, such news sent him into a state of psychosis, which disrupted his relationship with both family and healthcare providers. Now, this is an extreme case which is suitable for a movie, but we should take note of the fact that such an extreme reaction is very rare. I imagine some doctors go in their entire careers without witnessing anything quite like it. Nonetheless, this case does illustrate the point that there are real dangers to giving full disclosure. The motivation for full disclosure is also significant. Jack's character needed to be able to make decisions about his own care and hence needed to be fully informed of his condition. Hence, when intervention is called for, informed consent issues can force the doctor's hand. Our next case illustrates that the need for informed consent does not always result in full disclosure of information to the patient. These details are from an actual case. A young 19-year-old woman with mild retardation went in for a checkup in order to figure out why she had not started her period. The doctors discovered that she lacked any female genitalia and actually had an undescended testicle in her abdomen. She was also about to get married. A question arose concerning what should be told to the young woman. Those who favored telling her the truth argued that it was virtually inevitable that she would discover it later on, and that she would feel betrayed if deception was wrought. Those who didn't want to tell her the truth prevailed, and she was only told that she had gonadal mass in her abdomen. Tomasma notes that this happens quite a bit in this sort of case. In this sort of cases, the text is a little vague concerning what exactly Tomasma means. He could have in mind paternalistic attitudes towards persons with mild retardation, or worse, he could have in mind cases which involve ambiguous sexuality. In any case, do you think the correct decision was made? There are two issues here. First, does the young woman have a right to know the truth in the Kantian sense that this is a part of what it means to fully respect her as an autonomous and reasonable adult? Just because she suffers from mild retardation does not mean that she couldn't be brought to an understanding of the details of her sexuality. Tomasma doesn't deal with this consideration too much. The second consideration concerns just how likely it is that she will discover the deception and feel betrayed. I'm not a doctor, but I assume that if she gets married, she and her husband may discover that she lacks female genitalia. She also has a lifetime of doctor visits ahead of her, so why think future doctors will go along with the deception? Hence, I think it's ridiculously likely she will eventually come across the truth. Our next case is also very complex. A young Hispanic woman is in a coma and is pregnant. She may or may not recover from the coma if she doesn't progress towards health, the family will eventually need to be told of the pregnancy. A person can be kept on life support in order to allow a fetus to develop into a baby who can be given birth to. Tomasma notes that the key question here is not if the truth should be told, but when. He also notes that because the family and the medical care team will have an extended relationship, there is room for the doctors to exercise some tact concerning when to reveal the pregnancy. Our last two cases concern different reasons for withholding the truth, or at least not pushing it to discover it, in the context of longer term care. The first case involves a young man who has been paralyzed in a football accident and will most likely never walk again. Given his fragile state after the accident, the doctors decide to withhold this information until he's better able to handle it. This delayed truth telling is easier to justify than withholding the truth forever, especially when we consider the fact that doctors' prognosis often turn out to be incorrect. Our next case involves screening for prostate cancer. It turns out that 30% of men over 50 have what Tomasma calls latent and asymptomatic prostate cancer. This means that such cancer may or may not ever spread and hence become dangerous. Indeed, the vast majority of such tumors do not spread. Hence, Tomasma doesn't think it wise to have wide-scale testing done, since this could set off a panic, which could result in many unnecessary surgeries and fear. These surgeries sometimes leave men impotent. Hence, there are serious risks involved. Such testing and the resulting surgeries which may be undertaken are also very expensive. Hence, we have strong utilitarian reasons for not pushing for more widespread testing. This is not a case of withholding the truth in the usual sense of the term. Rather, this is an argument that discovering the truth, especially when the information which would be discovered is only partial, is not always justified. Similar thoughts are often expressed about various screenings for breast cancer. Many early-stage cancers are eliminated by the woman's own natural defense system. Hence, it may be alarmist to promote various types of high-tech procedures which can detect the tiniest of cancers. Let's now turn our attention to Limpkin's article, which gives us several things to think about regarding doctor-patient communication. This was originally a Newsweek article and not a scholarly one, hence many of the points he makes are not particularly well developed. But this is a useful article in relation to drawing our attention to various factors that we might otherwise ignore. Limpkin's first point is that when a doctor gives information to the patient, what the doctor intends to communicate often is not always understood very well by the patient. For example, the declaration that the patient has cancer might cause the patient to think she's going to die, even though many cancers are treatable and even curable. Now, of course, all that really follows from this example is that doctors should take the time to clear up such confusions by talking things through quite thoroughly with the patient. But this is a good reminder that there's often a gap between what is said and what is understood. Limpkin also discusses a common form of deception in the form of the use of placebos. A placebo is an inert substance given to a patient as if it were actually medicine. The mind-body connection is very strong in a lot of patients, hence the mere suggestion that they are being treated can cause a lot of progress towards health. Such placebo effects are well documented. Now, telling a patient that he or she is receiving medicine when he or she might actually be eating a sugar pill is clearly a form of deception. Limpkin justifies the deception on the grounds that it often works. Now, this is not a great response to the deception charge once one realizes the context in which most placebos are given. They are most often given when a new treatment is being tested. In order to rule out placebo effects, a control group will sometimes be given a placebo. If the medicine receiving group does better than the placebo receiving group, this constitutes stronger evidence that the new treatment is effective. Hence, persons in the placebo group are typically denied the opportunity to receive a medicine which might work. Nowadays, it's common practice to inform patients that they may either be in the control group or the medicine receiving group.